Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so techies of Baltics. First of all, I'm Aldis. I'm your host for today. And then the DevOps community, the Latvia DevOps community is one of techies of Baltics communities. If you're still like raising your eyebrows and asking techies, what do you mean? Then in some LinkedIn, you can find out what is techies of Baltics, or you can just go to the devops.lv, look for Slack there, and then click the link which you will find. And in result, you will join the Techies of Baltics and you will find a DevOps channel there. So what really is Techies of Baltics? We're trying to join the Baltics IT communities and people who are interested in IT. So if there's someone who is interested in leading their own IT community of some kind, feel free to reach out. We're getting bigger with every day. But then DevOps, some people may say that it's kind of behind all of it. Well, because we were at the core, and then what the picture is about. So first of all, these DevOps Talk events are about learning. That's what the little O is about. We're here to learn. But then from what we hear, and today James will tell you a few things, and I assume that we actually will learn something from him because he's bringing something new. He's bringing something what he probably has even made by himself, or at least was close to the making process. But then once we have learned a little, then we discuss, exchange. That's kind of the QA part. We'll give some time for James to answer the questions and so on. Then maybe two people together form an idea, or maybe individually we form an idea. Maybe we bring that knowledge to our workspace or our pet project, whatever. And then obviously we launch the rocket. You know, we take the technology, the idea, the knowledge, and we launch the rocket. And at the end, it's truly about the love, about loving DevOps, loving each other, and being happy and feeling loved. Okay, simple as that. The core organizers, and I'll be honest with you, like 5 minutes before we started the event, I wrote in our organizers chat slides and like five exclamation marks. So this, what you see on the screen, it's not the latest version. The latest version is kind of a bit lost right now. But who are the key organizers? It's Lena, who is enjoying the vacation. It's Arturs Kovalenko, who will be making notes today. Arturs, are you there? He's making notes. He has no time. Yeah, Marcis, are you with us today? I think he was also busy, probably. Then I think Muratan joined somewhere. Yeah, I see him. Yeah.
Yep. Hello.
Great. Edgars, are you also vacationing or are you there? Probably. Yeah. And then we have Yelena with the little cloud. Yelena is going to be your facilitator today for the second part. And she will explain later on what's that about. I will not touch it now. So pretty much each of us is from a different company, which makes this super fun. And then one thing which just crossed my mind, by the way, this event also is some kind of re-kickoff of, we'll see, should we create a separate kind of active sub-community with a focus on Amazon Web Services specifically. So we're kind of having two events into one. One is the typical DevOps talk. The other one is the AWS community kickoff. So we have James from AWS. So that's how we connect these pieces. Those who came only for AWS talk, it's up to you. Do you want to stay for the second part, which Yelena will explain later on? I hope that just untangles some confusion. But then, James, you already started telling us where are you from and so on. I assume that you have a way more to share with us about yourself specifically. Could you please try to take over the screen sharing? Does it work?
Yeah, sure. Let me give that a try.
Okay. By the way, while James is trying to take over the screen sharing, so James actually created this talk by himself, as I understand. Then he needed to submit it for the Amazon Web Services people, his own people who need to review and approve it. So it took us a while. It took us a month as minimum, but now James is here. It's all approved to be shared with us. So James, tell about yourself and what you have prepared for us today.
Brilliant. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me? You can hear me okay? And you can see me as well?
Good.
Brilliant. Let's make a start. So yeah, the title of my talk is Put the Code into Infrastructure as Code. And that's what I want to talk about. So I want to start just by, it's difficult. Right, okay, that's better. I wanted to start by introducing myself. So I started a bit there earlier, but my name is James Craig. I am a partner solutions architect at AWS, working specifically in financial services. So that means I work with our AWS partners who are software publishers, mostly producing software for the financial services industry. My background is that I've spent over 25 years in IT, which is kind of scary. I started off as a developer. I've been a database administrator. I've done performance tuning. I've been a dev team lead. I've been a product owner, lots of things, and working at AWS now. And I think like it's really interesting to hear your introduction, and thanks so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. I think that, you know, it's the kind of thing that resonates with me. And I don't know where I first heard this, but I heard someone say something really great once, and it's kind of something I try to live by. It's like I've always tried to automate myself out of a job. So it's always my aim. It's like I'm a very lazy person, and if I do something more than once, I try and automate it. So this talk is very much about something I found very useful for doing that at AWS, and I hope that it's useful to other people as well. Also, you may be wondering, like, who's that guy in the picture? Because it doesn't look like me at all. So this is maybe what looks a bit more like me, and this is what people over the last 2 years got used to seeing me on the screen with my cat. I've shut the door and locked out so that she doesn't interfere with the call. But I've been at AWS for 4 years, so you can see what 4 years at AWS does to you, and 2 years of lockdown. So that's me. That's my introduction. Let's start with the presentation. So just a quick agenda. I'm going to start off by talking a bit about the evolution of infrastructure as code, as I see it, and then that will lead into AWS CDK and why it feels very much like the next step in the evolution, why it's good about it. I'm going to attempt to do a demo because it's much more interesting than looking at my PowerPoint slides, and then give you some information about how you can try CDK out, and actually how I use CDK like as part of my day job. That's something I'm quite close to. So starting off with, like, why do we need automation, right? So if you've ever provisioned IT infrastructure, it's never that simple, right? It's not as simple as you plugging in a cable, run a software installer, and we get more and more requirements, like create a new environment, like copy that environment that's over there, create a new test environment from it, create something on the other side of the world based on what we've got. It's very difficult, and it used to be quite a team process. So you'd have specialists in different areas. You'd have like network specialists, Unix XAs, all sorts of people that could contribute. But as we move like more and more into the DevOps world, and particularly as the cloud has come in, everything's become much more virtual, and people are expected to cover a whole swathe of areas, like more and more responsibilities becomes much more difficult. So you're expected to be a networking expert and be a Unix SA and know how to build virtual machines. It's really quite difficult, and that's where automation can make a difference. What about the cloud? So cloud brings its own complications, but also solutions. Now, I'm a solutions architect, and I love to draw diagrams like the ones that are on the screen. This is, in fact, the architecture of one of my partners. It's their solution, and this is how we show customers how it looks like on AWS. The reality is that although we can draw a nice picture like this with the services talking to each other with nice lines, the reality is much more complicated, and behind this picture in the real world, there's a lot more things you have to do to deploy them. There's connectivity, there's permissions, there's all sorts of things you have to configure and maintain. So we really need automation to make that easier. Now, you know, you can build cloud infrastructure with AWS Console. What's wrong with that? Well, most people using AWS start off creating resources in the console, and actually, you know, that's good. It's a great place to experiment, to play around. You can kind of see everything that's available without having to read the manual. But it rapidly becomes a lot of work to build things that way, and it's not really very repeatable. So, as an example, I've got a screenshot here of the launch wizard that you use to create a virtual machine in AWS, and there's a lot of choices you can make. Like this page scrolls and scrolls, and then this kind of cheating bit at the end, we heard advanced options, and it's twice as long. It's really quite difficult. Now you can do that once, but you know, if you try and do it again, how sure can you be you'll do all the same things again? And crucially, like, how can you teach someone else to do the same things as you're doing? It's very difficult. So there's got to be a better way than like kicking and creating things, and that idea of automating things and templatizing them has become known as infrastructure as code. So what do we mean when I say infrastructure as code? It's a process of defining, provisioning, updating your IT infrastructure through code, rather than clicking buttons to make actions happen. So you describe your desired environment through code, and the code becomes the documentation, allows you to safely and predictably change your infrastructure. Codifying your infrastructure in this way allows you to treat it just like applications. So you can author it with code editors, you can check it into a version control system. Before deploying it, you can do code reviews, and crucially, you can see the history of your infrastructure. On top of this, you can then build automated tooling on top of that code. It means you can build CI/CD pipelines to deploy your infrastructure. They can contain automated testing, and then you have the facility to roll back changes when they break things. Infrastructure as code is a concept that's evolved over time. So we started off with manual deployments. People write instructions and wikis, create playbooks, instruction manuals, that kind of thing. Now you do that with good intentions, but it's really hard to maintain those kind of things, right? Sorry, just moving something there. You know, we've all been in a situation where someone gives you the instructions, you follow them, but it turns out that the instructions aren't quite right. Something's changed, they're out of date, it becomes very painful. Typically, people's next step after that is to start scripting deployments. You kind of start off doing that, you do something quick and dirty, Bash or Perl or Python, something like that. It works quite well to start off with, but it gets more and more complicated, and you end up writing lots of code, which I call plumbing. You're doing more effort kind of handling errors and edge cases and plumbing things together than you are the actual deployment. Again, it becomes very difficult to maintain and keep alive. Now, the next big step was the introduction of provisioning engines, things like Ansible and Terraform, or even AWS CloudFormation. So these tools kind of hide the complexity of things like state management, dependencies, and error handling. So developers can then describe their infrastructure in a declarative way and then hand over the execution of that infrastructure to the engine. And that's been hugely popular and widely adopted. But as a consequence, people build more and more complex things in these templates. Again, becomes very difficult to maintain. And you can feel like you're being held back a bit by the limitations of the engine. So what's really missing from these tools? The next idea was that they're not code, right? So the next thing is we start using generators. So we write code that generates templates. The code's written in a normal programming language, it generates the templates. It gives us an extra level of control. And from that idea, we start thinking, okay, so we can build abstractions on top of that. And things like Pulumi and AWS CDK that I'm going to talk about provide tools and frameworks to build abstractions on the top of these frameworks, which really give us an extra layer of control. So this is an example of AWS CloudFormation. So kind of have to talk about CloudFormation because actually it underlies AWS CDK. That's a CloudFormation, part of a CloudFormation template on the screen. It's a template written in YAML or JSON, and it is, I'll be frank, it's not much fun, right? One of the things that I was most disappointed about when I joined AWS was CloudFormation. You think about like all the great things you can do in the cloud, and then when it comes to kind of creating them, you're down to writing this slightly horrible template in YAML. It's a bit frustrating, and it's got its own idiosyncrasies. There's like these kind of funky functions built into it, that kind of thing. The learning curve is quite difficult. What it is effectively is a wrapper on the AWS API. So you write this template, JSON or YAML, you upload it to CloudFormation, and CloudFormation executes the APIs for you. And it has lots of great features built in, like dependency management. So if one resource needs something else to be created, it will take care of that for you. It's also got built-in version control and error handling. So if you deploy a new version of your template and something goes wrong, it can automatically roll back to the previous version. It's also free, which is good, and it doesn't have any kind of external dependencies. There's nothing you have to install, anything like that, to get it running. So it is popular with customers, but I think it's not as good as it could be. There's got to be a better way to do things, right? So that better way is the AWS Cloud Development Kit. So it allows you to really make your infrastructure really is code with AWS CDK, and you can do it in your favorite programming language. So we at AWS released CDK in 2019. It was created internally for internal use cases, but actually people thought it was so good that we wanted customers to use it, and it was put out there for people to use. And it's actually open sourced, and it's been hugely successful with AWS and with our customers. So what is CDK? It's a software development framework for defining AWS cloud infrastructure using familiar programming languages. So firstly, it's a generator for CloudFormation templates. It's a tool you can use which generates the static YAML templates that get deployed in CloudFormation. This allows you to do pre-processing on the client side that you can't really do on the server side, and it is a more elegant way of getting things done. It supports multiple programming languages. So you can write your code in Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, C#, and now Golang. So you can write in the language that you're comfortable with, and you don't have to context switch, right? So if you write an application in Java, you can write your infrastructure in Java as well. Use the same toolkits, the same editor. You're not context switching between two different things when you're working between. So I think that's very powerful. Because all the languages are slightly different, you end up writing slightly different code in different languages, but the concepts are all the same, and at the end of the day, it all turns into CloudFormation templates. Secondly, CDK is a deployment toolchain with which you can deploy the CloudFormation templates that you could create. And it allows you to do things like bundle them up with any dependencies they might have. So you might include Lambda functions, you might include data, it can all be kind of wrapped up, and CDK will take care of that for you. It will allow you to inspect differences between what you've deployed, what you're about to deploy, kind of nice features like that. Although you can also deploy the CloudFormation templates outside of CDK, and that's quite useful as well if you want to create templates easily, but maybe give them to people without them needing to know CDK is involved. You can also do that. It's a very useful feature. And this is where it gets really interesting, CDK is also an abstraction framework. So CDK provides sensible default values for AWS API parameters wherever it can. So it removes the amount of documentation you need to read, the amount of defaulting, gets you up running quickly and safely, but it also gives you ability to override any of these parameters where you need. So you've got a lot of power, but also a lot of ease of use. And then you can build your own abstractions and components on top of these things. So you can build a component that represents your application or a thing that you do frequently, package it up, and allow other people to use it, which is very powerful. There are three main components of CDK. There's the core framework, there's the AWS Construct Library, and there's the command line interface. So with the core framework, you create things that we call apps that contain stacks. Stacks are logical units of infrastructure, and within a stack, you can create one or many resources in AWS, and they're mapped one-to-one to the CloudFormation stacks. So typically, you divide your resources into stacks with different life cycles. So you might have one stack that creates network infrastructure, VPCs, that kind of things, and another stack that has your application in, because they have different life cycles. Then the AWS Construct Library is a set of components that we've created at AWS that create resources for specific services. So they help you build the best practices, build in security considerations, and they give a good, consistent developer experience so you can work fast and iterate fast. And then finally, the CLI interacts with the core framework and the constructs, initializes the project, handles the deployments and into AWS. So I'm now going to try and do a demo because it's much more interesting actually seeing it happen, right, than look at these slides. So let me switch over and see how that goes. Okay, so hopefully you can see Visual Studio. I hope. I'll just go with it. I have cheated slightly in the interest of time. I have used CDK itself to initialize the project here, and I've installed it, set up my account, set up my AWS credentials, and in fact the command you run is this CDK in it. So I want to create an application. I'm going to do it in TypeScript. TypeScript's got less typing than the alternative, so it's good for doing a demo. And that has created this project that you can see here. So lots of bits and pieces, configuration, basics for if you want to check it into Git. There's a nice README file that tells me exactly what commands I would want to run next. And most importantly, I've got this file here, my stack, which basically is where I start putting code, which I'm going to do now. So first thing I'm going to do is create a VPC. And you can see, like, as I'm typing, Visual Studio code completion and everything is working. So it's kind of hinting all the options I've got. The documentation's popping up there. So it's like telling me what a VPC is, what this function does. It's super powerful. I don't need to go and look at other manuals, that kind of thing. It's really great. The VPC function, I think, is like it's kind of killer feature. So I need to tell it it's part of the stack. I need to give it a name to uniquely identify it, but that's it. So with that one line of code, I can create a entire and usable VPC in AWS. And if you have done that yourself using the CLI or using CloudFormation, you realize that that's really it's quite a time saver. So within that one line of code, I've created a VPC with its own set of IP addresses. It has divided it up into public and private subnets. It's created route tables between those subnets and between the internet. It's created NAT gateways, internet gateways, the whole thing with one line of code, which is it's pretty great. Now, in CDK, we have this concept of constructs and different levels of constructs. So you have what we call level 1 constructs, and level 1 constructs map directly with CloudFormation resources. So they are automatically generated classes that map one-to-one with CloudFormation. They're very simple and they're very dumb. So there's no defaulting, there's no added intelligence. You just kind of get a map directly to CloudFormation. Where it gets a bit more interesting is we move up to what we call level 2 constructs, and VPC is an example of that. So level 2 construct starts bringing in defaulting and extra logic. So we default everything that we can, everything that's sensible, bring together your dependencies. So you can do things like create a VPC with a single command. So next I'm going to create a container cluster. That's my bad spelling shows up. So again, I have to tell it it's part of the stack. I have to give it a name. VPCs, there's one thing that you can't, cluster, there's one thing that you can't default. So it needs to know what VPC to use. Again, like I've got code completion here. So, Visual Studio tells me all of the options that I have for a cluster. Again, it's like super helpful. So the VPC is the VPC I've just created. Again, this is a level 2 construct, so it's bringing together everything you need to do to create a cluster. If you do that through the console, you would have to tell it which subnets to use, that kind of thing, but this is all defaulted for me. Now, then we get even more powerful. We have the idea of level 3 constructs. Level 3 constructs start putting together more than one resource. So building blocks, building kind of whole applications, whole solutions out of multiple pieces, and this is where it gets really powerful. So we have a level 3 construct called an application load balanced Fargate service. Again, I have to give it a name, and this one's kind of complicated, needs a few parameters, but an application load balanced Fargate service is this will deploy a container which will run on Fargate, which is our serverless container system in ECS, which is our Elastic Container Service, and it will be in the VPC that I've created, on the cluster that I've created. It will have a load balancer put in front of it, and it will be exposed on the internet, all following best practices, and there will be security group rules and permissions and logging and all of those things done for me by the level 3 construct. And I can override pretty much any aspect of the behavior that I want to, but almost everything is defaulted for me, so I can do that with the minimum amount of work. So it does need some parameters. It needs to know what cluster it's going to run on. It needs to know how many instances of the container I want running. Fargate is configured by how much memory and CPU you use. And then I need to tell it what container it's going to run on, what container image it's going to use. And also there's lots of kind of helper functions in CDK that help you with doing things like this. So here, I'm just going to use a function that is going to pull the container image from a registry. Okay. It's all very quiet, but I'm hoping this is making sense. So I don't see any red lines, so it looks like I've typed it. Okay, no, there's one there, isn't there? I've forgotten the comma. That was pretty good, though. So I've written 24 lines of code there. It's going to create a VPC, container cluster, Docker service running it, application load balancer. It's going to put it on the internet. I think that that's like a great demonstration of how powerful this can be. So what do I do next? I type CDK synth. So CDK synth is going to compile my application, or depending what language it's in, it's going to run my application, and it's going to output a CloudFormation template if I haven't made any mistakes or forgotten anything. Brilliant, success. So it prints the CloudFormation template on the screen, but actually it outputs it into one of the directories. So I can open it up and have a look at it. And you can see it's a very large file, right? Actually, that doesn't seem. Hang on, I've forgotten to save the file. Try that again. Okay, this is more what I was expecting. So you can see that 24 lines of code that I've written has turned it into a YAML template with over 1,000 lines. Now, I don't know about you, but I would not particularly want to be writing it's a lot of white space there, obviously, but that's not the kind of thing I would like to be writing by hand. So there's my CloudFormation template. There's a bit of kind of boilerplate stuff from CDK, but you can see there's all sorts of things in here. There's like security groups, task definition, subnets, all that kind of stuff, all done for me by CDK. So the next thing I would do is then I could do CDK deploy. And that's actually going to upload that template to CloudFormation and start executing it. If I had already deployed it, it would tell me the differences between what I have locally and what I'm about to deploy, which is very useful. And it will also warn me if I've made any security sensitive changes. So in this case, it's warning me that I have granted my service some permissions. It's kind of standard stuff, like there's a permission here to write logs. And I have made some changes to security groups, which are necessary to allow the access from the load balancer. So I say, yes, I'm going to deploy. And it's going to start the deployment. This does take a couple of minutes because it's going through CloudFormation. So I just want to go back and show you some other like nice features in CDK. One of the things that we do a lot once we start building cloud architecture is that we have to grant permissions. So you might have, so in this case, you might have a service running a container and you want to grant it permissions to read from another AWS service, say an S3 bucket. And that can be a little complicated to do by hand. You have to create an IAM policy, and best practices are it should be scoped minimally, so there should be a policy specific to where you want to read from. You have to apply that to the task. It can be a little verbose, but using CDK, we can do things like that very easily. So let's say that I have a bucket. Again, this is a nice one that doesn't need any parameters. So let's say I want to grant my service permission to read from the bucket. Well, it's got a lovely helper function here called grant read, and I just need to tell it who I want to have permission. If only it was as easy as just typing service here, but sadly, it's a little bit more to it than that. The service has a task definition to which there is a role attached. So I do it like that. And that's going to create behind the scenes, that's going to create a policy with permission just to read just from that specific bucket. It's going to attach it to my service. And you know, that is so much easier to do, so much easier to maintain, and so much easier to understand than having the doing it in CloudFormation. So this deployment typically takes slightly longer than it takes me to explain that bit. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation for a moment, and we'll come back and hopefully this will have finished in a couple of minutes. Slideshow, where are you? Okay, so that was the first part of the demo. So I've been through a lot of this. I'm going to skip through the slides now because this is kind of what I've talked you through. So here's your development workflow, initialize the project, run the build, deploy it, importantly destroy it afterwards if you wish. Deployment's made of stacks. We have a construct library that creates all the services, resources with nice defaulting. Talks about these different levels of constructs. So, you know, we've got level 1 constructs mapped straight to CloudFormation, but they're pretty dumb. Level 3 constructs allow you to build great things, gluing resources together, very little code, but actually a lot of CloudFormation underlying them. I'm going to skip through these because I can't talk through all this already. And then this is the one that I use, the application load balanced Fargate service. So you can see we've got a VPC, a load balancer, Fargate service, all of these things created by the one thing. Also useful to know, you can import existing CloudFormation templates. So if you already have spent a lot of time writing CloudFormation templates or people have given them to you, you can import them by referring to a file as part of your project, and then they can be accessed from within. So you can do things like operate on the resources that they create. So that's very useful. You can also import resources that already exist inside AWS. So you might have things that are created by other teams. Maybe there's a VPC there already that you have to use. Maybe there's a domain name in Route 53 that you don't change every time you deploy. So you can import those resources, but still make them part of your deployment. We also have, as well as the core constructs that come bundled with the library, we also have a wide variety of more extensive level 3 constructs, which are available from AWS Solutions Constructs. Has this front end here, but it's actually a GitHub project. So you can look through there for patterns for applications you're building, download those, make them part of your project, and make use of them. So you're building in best practices, allowing you to go faster. There's also a community site called constructs.dev, where the same thing happens, but the community contributes them. So you'll find all sorts of things here which can be useful without AWS having to provide them all. So that's really great. And actually the kind of cool thing is that the constructs website is itself a construct. So you can download the construct and you can deploy it yourself, and then you can have your own constructs library, a private one, or you can make it public, which you could maybe use within your organization, and you could start building constructs that represent your applications for your own internal usage and distribute them through your company. Okay, so at this point, I'm hoping that the demo has finished. I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio. I closed it for a moment then. Yeah, there we go. So it's good timing. So the CloudFormation deployment has finished. Took 5 minutes altogether, and it's given me the outputs of CloudFormation. One of them is the URL of my website. So I'm going to click here. Okay, open on the other screen. It's not a very exciting website, but you know, this is actually the website I just deployed. So, you know, from start to finish, showed you the process here of how we can deploy an application in AWS and make it publicly accessible, which is pretty powerful, I think. And then if I wanted to get rid of it again, I just type CDK destroy, and it will undo everything. It will roll back the CDK stack. It would ask me to confirm I want to do that first, but it's just compiling the code. Okay, right. So that's just recapping, just in case the demo went badly, that's recapping on what just happened. So I did 24 lines of code, created 30 AWS resources, 38, I think, more than 1,000 lines of YAML code. Also, I want to talk about CDK and how I've used CDK in my role and how I learned to love CloudFormation as a result. So as a partner solutions architect, I work with our partners and their customers and help them to make the most out of AWS. And the partners that I work with are quite long-standing companies who've been producing software for a very long time, have a large existing business, and that business is moving to the cloud. Historically, they used to sell their customers a software license, and the software, maybe it used to be on a CD, and normally a guidebook that would tell them how to install it. What we find is that customers expect much more now. Customers want the application to be deployed in the cloud in its entirety, and the runbooks that they used to have, they don't work in the cloud. So my partner that I showed the diagram of earlier, they had a cloud runbook which they were creating with the best intentions, and it had become a monster. So they had a Word document with over 100 pages, and it was full of screenshots and guidance, and people would spend days executing it, and then they would find at the end of it, it didn't quite work, and you know, that didn't work for anyone. So when I started working with them, clearly there was a need for automation. And actually they tried things like Terraform and Ansible, but they'd have problems with them. Terraform didn't quite, they were trying to support multiple clouds. Terraform didn't make that as easy as they were hoping. Ansible is a bit tricky because you have to get your customers to install Ansible. So they kind of have their own problems. We could see the value of CloudFormation, give the customer a CloudFormation template, you deploy it. Don't need to learn anything, it's quite straightforward, but none of us really fancied writing a CloudFormation template that would encapsulate their entire architecture. But just around that time, CDK was released, so I thought this is a great opportunity to use CDK to do this. And we did that. It took quite a long time in the end, but we got to the point where they use CDK both internally and externally. So it's kind of the golden source of their deployment now. They share it with customers, use it internally for testing, for creating demo environments, and that's been really successful. What we did learn along the way, that was being an early adopter was a little painful. When we started, because CDK had just been released, it was evolving very rapidly. So there wasn't 100% coverage of AWS resources. So sometimes all that would be there would be the L1 resource. It's like dumb CloudFormation. So we'd kind of have to build our own level 2 and level 3 constructs. And then a couple of weeks later, we'd hear that the level 3 construct was there. So we'd update our CDK, and it was. But in the meantime, they'd completely changed the syntax of across the board, so we'd have to rewrite everything. And that was kind of painful, but we got there in the end. But I think, you know, actually it's a great time to be doing this talk, because I think we've reached a certain stage of maturity in CDK. CDK is in some ways kind of grown up. It will be 3 next month, so it's released in July 2019. You know, I think it's a great time to get started. You're kind of past that initial early adopter painful stage. The Golang support was actually released. That's another language that's supported now. And we have moved to what is called CDK version 2. One of the things that we found particularly painful when developing was that every one of those constructs that I talked about, or every AWS resource, had its own library. So you'd pull in each library independently, and we were doing it in Java and using Maven. That was quite painful to do that, to handle the dependencies. CDK version 2, everyone realized that was a bad idea. All of the dependencies are in one library now. The whole thing's bundled together. no more problems with dependencies. It's actually much better. It's really good. Version 1 is in kind of maintenance mode. Everyone's moving to version 2 now. I think it's a better experience. And I think the future holds quite interesting things as well. So what we see now is that other solutions that you would think perhaps are competitors with CDK, things like Terraform and Pulumi, are actually working with CDK and integrating together. So both of those solutions now have a feature where you can use them as alternate engines instead of CloudFormation. So, you know, in the demo I gave, it's still very obvious we're still using CloudFormation. You can actually now use Terraform's own deployment engine or Pulumi's own deployment engine as alternatives to CloudFormation, which I think is very interesting. Pulumi believe that they can deploy faster than CloudFormation. They're using going directly to the AWS APIs or using other APIs. That's very interesting. And if you use Terraform, it opens up other options because the Terraform engine can deploy to other clouds. So actually you could write CDK and it can be deployed to other clouds on-prem. So that's really interesting options for the future. And we also see the CDK concepts of abstraction and being language independent applied in other areas. For example, there's a project called CDKs, which is applying the same ideas to Kubernetes and Helm charts. So you define your infrastructure, your application manifest in CDK-like code, and it generates the Helm manifest for you. So you don't have to touch the YAML and that side either. So I think that's very interesting. My suggestion to you, if you thought that was interesting, you think that could help you out, is to give it a try. There's a really great website called cdkworkshop.com, which is a tutorial which will walk you through everything you need to know about CDK and CloudFormation, and it will walk you through that. You can go through that at your own pace. It's really great. We have lots of online documentation examples provided as well. CDK is also an open ecosystem. It's open sourced. We would love to have as many people's contributions as possible. So if you go to the GitHub site for CDK, you'll see that the roadmap is public. You can see what's being planned. They gladly take contributions from the community. In fact, I forgot to say on the previous slide, it's very, very active. There was a CDK release on average once a week over the last year, and 900 contributions from the community accepted. I think that's more than 50% of the changes. So love to get people involved. And then there's the community resources, like I mentioned, things like constructs.dev. So CDK aside, so I'll just kind of wrap up and talk about the benefits of infrastructure as code that I've talked about. So, you know, it's really one of the key benefits here is being able to use the same model for your application and infrastructure. So you're not context switching anymore. If you write your application in JavaScript, you can write your infrastructure in JavaScript. Use the same language and tooling and workflows. Really powerful, very efficient. You can also apply programming paradigms to infrastructure modeling. You can start using control flow logic. You can do loops. You can do if statements. It's great. You know, like my partners, if they add a new support for a new database engine, it's just an if statement in the code. If they want to use EKS instead of ECS, it's an if statement. It's brilliant. So much reusability in the code. You can create your own high-level abstractions, and you can share those with libraries with people that you're working with. And then infrastructure as a code as a whole, it means accelerated delivery. So we reduce the manual steps, and it reduces the amount of time that takes to do our work, adds business value. So it brings improved reusability, simplifies our maintenance. We can integrate testing and QA, and we have less code to read, which is good for everyone. And overall, it means you can go faster while still staying safe. And that's the end.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for listening. Everyone was very quiet, but that's okay.
Well, maybe it will become a little less quiet.
Okay.
So
maybe I'll just put the. Oh, hang on. I was going to put the links up on the screen just in case anyone's interested in those.
Yeah, let's have it. Is there anyone with a question? We should have a few minutes time for that.
I do. Oh. I've been trying to do it faster and faster all week, but it's
yeah, we are short on time. That's true. Anyone? Okay, so there's Rajesh in the chat asking the typical pain, question about the typical pain. So Rajesh is asking, is drift detection possible with CDK? Well, for like existing resources.
Yes, that's a good question. I was just trying to find the chat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so actually, I mean, drift detection is possible, but via CloudFormation. So what CDK does is, so you can do CDK diff, and that will compare what's on your local workstation with what CloudFormation thinks is deployed. But drift detection is obviously not that. Drift detection is the difference between what CloudFormation thinks is deployed and what's actually deployed. And that's a feature of CloudFormation. So you can do that through CloudFormation, not CDK itself.
Yeah. Any more questions? Let's see, are people alive? So thank you, James. Feel free to stay longer for the second part as well. Yeah, I hope you will enjoy it. But before we get to the second part, so we were thinking that maybe the some crazy times are over, new crazy times have begun. But how many of you would be interested to have an event on site at the end of August? Send some kind of a reaction or raise a hand or in some way, or write in the chat maybe.
That's great. If I can get my manager to sign off on the travel, I'll be there.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
We'll invite you. So I see one raised hand, two raised hands. There's two raised hands by Arthurs. For some reason, I don't see everyone on the same screen. Now I do. Yeah, there are a few. So that's something what we're cooking. Hopefully it's gonna happen. But then we still don't have a specific speaker selected for that event, and maybe we can afford more than one if we're making such type of event somewhere in Riga. Yeah, so feel free to ping us if you have a topic to present. If you don't feel as professional speaker, we still can try to connect and maybe help you with that. If you have a topic, we always start with a topic. Yeah, okay. So Yelena, over to you for the second part.
Do you want to continue? I do. And I want to share this screen. Do you see it?
Yeah, a bit more than we would expect, but maybe it's good as is. We can read, it's good.
See presentation mode. So welcome to the second part of the DevOps talk. From my side, I just want to say to James a big thank you. Your presentation was so easy to follow, and it was like, wow, it's like everyone can do that, and it's definitely a tool to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
And in the talk discussion part, now we have a chance to actually discuss something. And maybe you have your own thoughts, you want to have other opinions on some other tools, maybe you have some issues at work, or maybe some ideas you want to get feedbacks, anything on your mind. And the rules, so we will have active participants, so you have to actually say, yes, I want to participate, I want to be active, I want to say my opinion, my views. And you will have to give a topic as well to discuss. And the rules are, so you have to remember about your company signed documents, so no, don't tell more information that you kind of allowed, so like project names, some secrets and stuff, so be careful with that. We would like to have your camera on, so it's always nice to see a person, if you don't mind, of course. Everyone has to share something. Even if you don't have experience, you can just say it. So we would like to have a conversation. Talk about your own experience. And don't judge anyone. So you can say like, I've done this and I think this would be better, but don't say like, oh, you've done it wrong. So it's about respect, not interrupt each other, and be present. So don't wander on your phones. So the active participants are very asked to be present in the discussion. And here we have our board. I'll paste it in the chat. Where's chat? Here is chat. It worked. Please join the board, and if you would like to participate in the discussion, put your name on the screen. Agita, great, we have a first one. And straight next to your name, you can start thinking about the topic, what you would like to discuss, like migration to a new version of Kubernetes or anything what comes to your mind. Etienne, welcome. We have third one coming. So I'll give you 5 minutes to come up with your topics and to become an active participant. Don't be shy, we have already 4, which is amazing. Anyone else to join?
James, this is a moment when you can participate.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to ask a stupid question. Like, how I've got the Google Docs open. How do I create one of those boxes? Like,
It's just here. You put in your text box.
Is that? I just create. Oh, just create a text box. Okay, yeah. I'm stupid, aren't I?
No, so it means that Google has something to work on to be more user friendly.
It was too simple.
Or yeah, maybe it was too simple. You're like, where's the code to be written? Move down a bit lower, probably. So, wait, I've done something wrong. Sorry.
You did nothing wrong. We just were moving at the same time.
Okay.
I just wanted to be closer to Vido, since we have like one topic. It's AWS and Kubernetes.
Good point. Ooh, someone else is Farhad joined. Great. 6 participants. Amazing. 7. Who is coming? All this. Yay. Tatiana, what are you watching on the background? Cooking class?
Oh, yes, I'm participating local webinar. So today they overlapped. So it's my healthy cooking class and DevOps at the same time.
That's a good combination.
Yeah.
Then I will ask you to mute yourself while you're not talking, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, we'll become very hungry. Okay, looks like the topics are up. Let's get to know our participants. So let's start with the left corner. Farhad, hello. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much. First of all, for invite. One second, my name is Farhad. You already know me. So in the past, by the way, we're working together in Accenture. So I'm in IT close to maybe 10 or 12 years. So what I can say, a lot of experience with Linux operation systems, with different infrastructure as code approaches and scripting languages. Not bad and not very well sophisticated, but not bad experiences with DevOps in the past also. So right now I'm working more related with architecture than with infrastructure as code, and my experience is more concentrated around Azure cloud environment. But in any case, I'm still continuing from time to time to see what's new we have inside AWS. So I think that will be enough.
And you would like to know, can we integrate AWS CDK with Terraform?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Muhammad.
Hi, it's Mohammed. So I have also worked in Accenture, so currently I'm not working, but yeah, I have a good experience in AWS and as a DevOps specialist. So the main question is about, I actually want to know if our CDK, because I haven't worked with CDK before, so this is a new topic for me. And I just want to know, like, because in past one project I worked with the Golang to build up the infrastructure. So is it supported with the CDK with Golang or not?
Thank you very much. Guido, hello. Tell us a bit about it.
Yep, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we do.
Great. So, yeah, hi everyone. I'm working as a DevOps engineer in like infrastructure team, and like my question would be, maybe someone could shed some light or say his own experience with AWS Kubernetes services, and specifically how to securely configure external traffic into Kubernetes cluster. So I know you could use like Nginx as like proxy, which sends traffic and has ingress rules, and then also there is AWS has this AWS load balancer controller, and I was wondering maybe someone has play around these things.
Thank you very much. We go to Agita.
Hi, so I used to be DevOps in Accenture as well, and I used to work with Chef a lot, like for 4 years or something, and then I quit a bit, and now I'm working actually in DataOps. So like, yeah, I'm working for one open source project. So actually my two questions are, first is like, is DataOps relevant to Baltic techies? Because I can say something, I can say how is the transformation between DevOps into DataOps, and what are the similarities kind of, yeah, why it's actually kind of seemingly simple. And the second question is, how did the CDK grow the open source community? I mean, in general, it's a bit interesting to hear how it happened, because I'm also like managing now like open source tools. So yeah, it's just, yeah, we're in the beginning, but it's a question that I would like to hear the story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agita. Let's go to Tanya.
Oh, well, for me, it was one hot thing when we go to Kubernetes and AWS, and it also is connected to LB, Nginx, and other approaches, and EKS autoscaling, because if you are trying to do Kubernetes on AWS and you're going for tutorials, the most tutorials you will see settings from terminal, but if we go as a code with Helm and Terraform, there is not so many instructions how it's done. So I would like to know a little bit more about it.
Okay, thank you, James. We know about you, so your question is, what are your...
Yeah, I was interested in hearing from the group, what your experiences have been with infrastructure as code and with the tools. I think, and it's interesting hearing some of the other questions as well. Like, I think one of the drawbacks of working for AWS is you operate in this kind of bubble, and it's actually really interesting talking to people like yourselves, wider groups, and hearing other people's experiences. So that's what I was interested in.
Thank you very much. Santa?
Yes, hello. Very similar, I guess, to Tanya. I'm regarding the issue. Issues on AWS EKS auto-scaling out, and then the code deployed with Terraform. The question would be, is it really a couple of resources that we are using, or maybe someone had similar issue trying to add policies to get it up and running? And does the policies would really work, or should we still work with the AWS dashboard to set it up? And regarding myself, I'm a DevOps intern.
Yes, it's very strange because I actually know Santa, so for me it was obvious who she was. Yes, Santa is our excellent intern. Uldis.
Yeah, which one? Both are mine. Sorry for putting two there, but kind of came up with it. So one is intro. I'm from EAS Group, DevOps director there, and that gave me an opportunity to invite James. So cool, great to know you, James. But then, to me, AWS is like Apple. I have started thinking about which one is better. There's new iPhone version comes out, and I don't bother myself looking into what's the new feature. It's like, yeah, I'm on that. So to me, AWS is like that comparing to other public clouds, which probably is not very smart. But anyhow, so there was an idea to start building an AWS community as a separate thing in Baltics. Or at least in Latvia, but I don't see much interest there. And then I'm thinking, is it me doing something wrong, or is it people who don't need it? And that was one of things. The other one, multi-flavor infra. So I have a very specific case and a concrete problem that the infra which I'm making, let's be honest, my team is making, it needs to be deployed across different isolated networks and even customers, where each of that deployment is having a little bit different flavor, a different database, a different configuration here and there. And how can you keep the base infra and then have some kind of flavored parts? And that makes the whole thing very difficult to manage if we try to put it as one nice automation, pure infrastructure as code. So that's kind of a larger technical problem, maybe also organizational.
Thank you. And Simon joined. Or you're not going to speak as you're from the chat? No? Okay.
Oh, well, my bad. I put it from chat to board.
No, it doesn't work like that. We cannot accept it because person has to be active participant and actually talk. So now the most interesting part. Now everyone from the active participants have to choose where was icon? Forms, sorry, it's in Latvian. And just put your form next to the topic that you would like to be discussed. And the one who gets the most forms will get the chance to get his topic to the public discussion.
Okay.
So yeah, just take a form and stick it somewhere you're interested. Hey, it's mine.
One each.
One participant, one form.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you have to choose one topic. Oh, that's a big heart.
I can't see what was under. Can't see what was underneath now.
Yeah. Can you please make it smaller?
How many we can vote? Like how many topics?
One topic.
One.
You have to choose one topic that you are most interested. Can someone make that heart smaller, please?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, definitely can choose your topic if you want it to be discussed.
Thank you.
That's very fair, Sophie. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, looks like Tanya's topic is our favorite today. So Tanya, please explain again your question and we can start the discussion.
Well, for me, it's node maintenance, but it's like all related with Santa's and Guido topic. It's all about how Kubernetes are handled in AWS as a code. Because, well, there is I have watched a lot of tutorials about how it's handled via console or terminal, but as a code, it's quite a little different thing. And as a node maintenance, at this point, I have like a task. Yeah, I come here to talk about my tasks.
Very clever.
Yes, to switch from self-managed nodes to AWS managed nodes. But at this point, I don't see many difference in that, how it's handled in our way. I would say that without any specific, we have self-managed nodes, and when I go to AWS managed, I still will need to do many manual things by maintaining those.
Okay, let's find out the experience of our participants. Farhad, do you have anything you can share?
No, don't have it for now.
Okay, fair enough. I don't either. Muhammad?
No, I would say like I don't have exact discussion about this topic at the moment, but I want to just listen.
Okay, fair enough. Agita, in your DevOps experience, did you face those issues?
No. Sorry, I have nothing to say.
Uldis, yes, raise hand.
Yes, can't comment.
I think we have to go straight to James.
Maybe let's leave him as the last one. And I'm sure there's more people also, inactive ones. Maybe someone at the end will want to add something.
Sure. Guido.
Well, I'll see Santa raise hand.
Yes. The question was, are you creating that managed EKS for one specific reason or more tasks? Because we are using Terraform. I suppose you're using Helm, but still we are creating it by resource launching template. And when you need more nodes, then it uses auto scaling and the template that you created for more nodes to be managed.
Yes, that's the thing, because, well, if we go to nodes and clusters, it's managed by Terraform, and that's kind of understood. But if you go to the pods are created by Helm. Well, not by Helm, but via Helm, I would say. The settings are in Helm. So I think I used to think that that's common practice, but when I start to question people about this, it seems like everybody has its own way, because when I asked the senior colleague, he told me that they use not AWS managed nodes, but fragile, which is not like the actual node there. Yeah, Dinesh, I'm also new to DevOps. I'm only not a half of a year of DevOps. It's 5 months for me. It's like I will be next month 6 months in DevOps. So that's why I have a lot of questions.
Guido, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I could try give one. So yeah, you probably could use like AWS launch templates to create templates which will spin up instance and make these launch template configurations such as this instance is AWS managed one. And then if you are talking about like Kubernetes side of thing, then you need to install Helm chart which has like clustered autoscaler, and then you create also with Helm resource in Terraform, you install this clustered autoscaling in the Kubernetes cluster, and then after these resources installed, you also need to create policies
and
policies for this like Kubernetes resource, so it could talk to the AWS itself, give us a signal, okay, you need to scale up and scale down. Maybe also
it was already done, but yes, thank you. But your question also is interesting to me, because we are switching from ILB to engines, and I came to WebSocket problem.
Okay, Tatiana, don't go there yet, because otherwise we will lose your topic.
Okay.
Okay, so Guido would do it this way, and Uldi, how would you do it?
I thought that I already answered.
Yeah, you told
Yes,
you don't have any
yes,
comments.
yes.
Yeah, forgot about that. So we have James left. So James, do you have, how would you do it?
Yeah, so let me preface this by saying that I am not a Kubernetes expert by any chance, but it's something that's coming up more and more often, and I'm learning about it at the moment. And actually, I think it's actually quite interesting. It's a slight digression, but actually that's where things get interesting and a bit tricky, where you have Kubernetes, which has its own way of doing things, but running in AWS, which has its own way of doing things, and getting the two to work together is not as good as it could be. I think that's something we'll see improve in future. Like my take on this would be that the managed node groups are a simplification for people that are getting started. So managed node groups kind of bundle up a lot of things for you in a simple operation. So you say, I want a node group and I want it to be this size, and AWS gets on with it and provisions it for you. And there's actually quite a lot of things going on in the background there, right? So it's creating EC2 instances, it's running them on an AMI that we look after and we patch, it's putting them into an auto-scaling group, it's tagging the instances so they work properly with the auto-scaler, it's creating the launch template that Credo talked about. And it's kind of doing all of these things for you, but all you have to do is say, I want a managed node group. So I think that works great for some people where they just want their pods to run, and the rest of it is, maybe a secondary concern. But there's some people where they're Kubernetes experts and they've done this before. Maybe they've done it in other clouds and they're quite happy with doing it in a more manual way, or maybe they're doing it in Terraform. That takes care of it. And in that case, the managed node groups aren't adding a lot of value because it's just kind of stitching together things that already exist for you. So that's the way I look at it.
Thank you. Tanya, did you get any help from that? Any ideas how to go further?
Oh, well, I got the opinion that all I have done was done correct way, but still I'm not sure that this is the way they should be handled specifically in our project, because
So
it all has its drawbacks. So yeah, but
research to do ahead of you.
So at the moment you use Terraform to provision the EKS infrastructure, but then you deploy Helm charts within the EKS cluster to do the kind of internal Kubernetes operations. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that's what most people do. Yeah.
Well, for me, the why I wanted to switch from self-managed nodes to AWS managed is kernel updates.
Okay, makes sense.
Because if we go for Amazon Linux, it needs a kernel update. So if I'm managing it myself, I need to taint, drain those nodes, then auto scale, and then restart those. So at this point, I thought just that maybe AWS Manager will not have so many things to do manually, but it seems that, well, probably not worth it, but
that should be how it works. I mean, that is one of the attractions, is that we manage the lifecycle for you. Mm-hmm. I would say that I have yet to encounter anyone who's managing the nodes themselves. Everyone I've worked with, every customer I've worked with uses the managed node groups. It's just one data point, I guess, but I think that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We have Rajesh with a raised hand. Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah, just like to share this. So we have been using mostly the AWS management because of obviously since you mentioned that on top of it, we have less burden on ourselves and we don't take risk of ourselves because it is not just the OS, it is the OS is being optimized from their point of view, from EKS point of view, and as well as from the hardening point of view. So there are multiple advantages to get out of that, where the overhead is being reduced. On top of it, something unrelevant, but I have been experiencing, like I was working in EKS, ingress environment, and I was trying to build up environment with Terraform, but which was painful at beginning. So I switched to something which is called EKS CTL, which is quite awesome tool that you might encounter someday. Is very handy tool. So if you like ever working in like ingress environment, you need things to be deployed. Instead of writing 1,000 lines of Terraform code, just use EKS CTL for testing purpose, obviously, because otherwise you need ISE, which is Terraform. That's one of the input I get. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajesh. So very, very useful information to make some further research for Tanya. And we have 10 minutes and we can have a quick discussion on the second popular topic, which was, is data ops relevant to Baltic techies? Techies. I always call them techies, I don't know why.
So yeah, I asked the question. I think I already explained kind of that. I mean, I have the experience and I can talk about it. I think on one of the meetings, I can present something, demo or something. So like the question is if it's relevant, if it's interesting, I can just go for it. Yeah, I will apply, whatever, like give me your opinion.
So raise your hands if data ops would be something interesting for you. Could grab a wider audience, not just active participants. We have people interested, so let's discuss it further. Yeah, nice. Thank you, guys. And another question which I'm very interested in is all this question. Put your hands down now. James have one as well, yeah, DataOps. Do we need a separate AWS community? What do you think? People in the chat, raise your hand if you think we need a separate AWS community. And we have a little discussion with active participants. So Farhad, what is your opinion?
Regarding AWS community?
Yes, do you need a separate AWS community?
No, to be honest, no. I think no, because I can explain why. First of all, we have a lot of communities worldwide, and we're living in a century when you can reach any one of them just clicking by a couple of buttons. So from this point of view, I'm not thinking that establishing separate and own AWS community will be quite useful for all participants, because if you want to meet and discuss something, you always have capability for that. So don't see any potential needs to establish separate community for that. Maximum that can be reachable, it's just to create some specific thematics, maybe on the same meetup.com, and create some separate Microsoft Teams channel or Google chat channel, whatever you want for this communications, nothing more. But it's my personal opinion, sorry.
Thank you. Mohammed?
I would say like somehow Farhad is saying in the right way, like we have already so many communities and we are looking those one, but yeah, but for separate, I think so if we have some communication regarding our specific questions, like AWS topics related to some specific questions, then we can have a separate discussion as a separate channel where we can have discuss about that one, but I'm okay with that one. I don't think so to go with that too much separate communities.
Okay, thank you. Guido?
Yeah, for me, I don't think so. The separate community for the AWS is needed, because like you could say DevOps is more broader term, and it you could run out of topics if we talk only about AWS. So I would say there is no need for extra community.
Thank you. Agita?
I think definitely it's not the time yet, because I think it's like it's not so full yet, you know, like you need to gather people more and like have some discussions, and then maybe when it's too huge to handle, like I guess AWS topic, then it has to go on itself, you know. So I also think maybe no, not time. I think it's just not the time yet.
Thank you. Tanya, what do you think?
Well, with experience ping pong from different communities with the same question, I would say no. It's good to have DevOps all at one place because, well, as you can see, we have 3 people with questions about Kubernetes and DevOps. And when you go to Kubernetes community, they say, no, that's, you can ask AWS. And when you go with this question to AWS, they say, no, that's Kubernetes handling. So no. So that's why we need to stay here all at once with such questions.
That was a very good point. Thank you, Tanya. Santa?
I agree, everyone. I'm like right now learning for practitioner certification. There's so much information, and we have on the Slack AWS channel, so everyone can be there and ask specific questions. So I agree to everyone, not at the moment.
Okay. James, What do you know about AWS communities?
I was maybe you'd be surprised, but I was going to agree with everyone else. Like I think, and unless you end up talking about just about AWS, I think actually there's great value from bringing people with different experiences and different outlooks together, and kind of learning from each other. I think that's quite interesting. Would not make sense, and certainly based on what other people are saying.
Uldi, are
Yeah.
you satisfied with people's opinion?
No, but that's my problem. I'm also taking back the stand. Okay, Elena, I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
It's actually pre-agreed, so she doesn't mind what she says. That was the plan. And then to quickly comment on what was just discussed about AWS. So yes, Santa already mentioned there is AWS channel in the Techies of Baltic Slack workspace. So that's something, if you don't know where to find it, you can look at LinkedIn and look for Techies of Baltic. So you can follow the link which I just posted for Farhad when he mentioned MS Teams and other portals. So we have the place which is in Slack. And then about the AWS specifically, so if I wouldn't have started going down this road, kind of James wouldn't be here. That's one thing. At the same time, I was thinking to myself, AWS is so much bigger than the typical DevOps talks, which are very much about infra, and nowadays a lot are about Kubernetes. But AWS is so much more. So where are people who are interested in that? That was my thinking. Anyhow, I'm meeting a few people next Monday who will tell me something about AWS communities. So let's see how that goes. But I'm hearing your feedback, and definitely DevOps continues. There's like no doubt in that. So these are the things which you definitely can follow, connect to don't miss the next event. In July, we all wanted to take a break, vacations and whatnot. So in August, hopefully we'll have the on-site event. I'm picturing some kind of hybrid event, that there's still someone who will want to connect online, which makes things complicated, but we're figuring it out. So the organizers of today, thank you Evolution, thank you Emergent, thank you EIS, thank you Accenture, thank you Printify, thank you Arawato. I will not read the full name, I will get it wrong. And then thank you, no sponsors. Meaning, if you decide, your company decides for whatever reason that you want to throw some money at us, which is going to help a lot for an on-site event, because that thing typically costs some money, feel free to reach out. That's it. Thank you for being with us. We're right on time, like a clock. Amazing. Thank you, and turning this off. Bye.
Thank you, guys. You were amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
James, you were amazing as well.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Respond to the survey.
Yeah.
Respond to the
Have a great
survey.
day.
Respond to the survey.
Survey in the chat. Yeah, survey in the chat.
It's already done. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.